Listeners, friends, comrades, our day has come once again. It is time for a split slate podcast for today in MLB DFS because we have a 5-game early only slate locking at 1:10 p.m. today. We have a main slate that's just 4 games, which gives us plenty of leeway to get you set for both slates and break down my favorite pitchers and stacks from both. 2 pitchers, 2 stacks, 2 slates to break down. Let's dive on in and get you set. Welcome on into the solo shot. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sanas. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to preview both the early only and main slates for today over on FanDuel.com. In case you are a first-time split slate podcast listener, the way this works is I will do the main slate first because if you're listening later on, it's knowing to skip around. So main slate first, then the early only slate will be after that. So if you're listening close to 1:10 p.m. and you want to get the early only slate thoughts, check out the episode description. In the episode description, there will be a timestamp letting you know when the early only slate analysis begins. Go there, listen to that part right now, then come back and listen to the main slate. So if you're listening again before 1:10 p.m., jump ahead to the early only slate and then come back later on. So lots of goodness coming up throughout the podcast for today. Quick reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, radio.com, you name it, we are there. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Hey, sports fans, FanDuel is offering an exclusive promotion for new sportsbook users. Join FanDuel Sportsbook today and make your first bet. If you lose, we'll give you a refund up to $1,000 in a site credit within 72 hours. Your first bet after depositing will qualify. If you have multiple selections on one bet slip, it will be the first selection you made. Head over to FanDuel Sportsbook today and make your first bet. Must be 21 plus and present in Colorado, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia. New users only. Max bonus, $1,000 site credit. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, 1-800-522-4700. In Iowa, 1-800-BETS-OFF. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. For confidential help in Michigan, 1-800-270-7117. In Tennessee, call the Red Line at 1-800-889-9789, or in West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Let's dive into the main slate right now over on FanDuel.com. It is a 4-game main slate with lock set for 7:05 for tonight. The lone weather note on the main slate is that winds at Yankee Stadium are blowing out to center at 10 miles per hour. So bump up hitters for the Yankees and the Twins. Due to that, you probably don't need a lot of justification to use the Yankees for today. So it just helps. It helps confirm what we already wanted to do. The pitchers on this main slate are led by Brandon Woodruff, checking in at $10,700. Luis Castillo is $9,700. And Jameson Taillon is $8,700. The lone 3 pitchers above $8,000 on the main slate. And to me, it's between Woodruff and Castillo for the top spot, but it's not really a competition. I just think those two are well above the rest. And to me, Luis Castillo is a decent chunk above Brandon Woodruff. It's a little bit of a revenge game here with his old organization, the Miami Marlins. Castillo, not the world's most consistent pitcher right now. He's pretty maddening, I would say, but he has slashed upside. And having the ability to have a ceiling is kind of what I need to be sold when someone is facing the Marlins. And it does seem like Castillo has made some sort of tweak. It was about 8 starts ago. He has had different movement on his fastball since then. So an 8-start sample. He is still walking too many guys in this time, which is likely leading to the inconsistency we talked about before. But his strikeout rate is 26%. He is letting up just a 25% fly ball rate. He's gotten 8+ strikeouts in half of those 8 starts. That's while making 5 of those 8 starts on the road. Now he shifts back home. He is facing the Marlins. They have an 84 WRC plus versus righties with a 24% strikeout rate. They don't walk a whole lot, which is good for Castillo given the lingering issues there. So I'm going to put Castillo at the top of my list due to the matchup, due to his being at home, due to the fact that he can have pop games. So yes, he is frustrating, but I still think he is our top option for today on the main slate. I am comfortable putting Woodruff second. He is facing the Cardinals, and that's a good matchup for a righty. They have a 90 WRC plus against righties with a 152 ISO. They don't walk a whole lot. They're not a big strikeout team. That's the one downside in terms of matchup against the Cardinals, but Woodruff provides those strikeouts on his own. He also, similar to Castillo's, altered movement on his pitches recently. For him, it's on his changeup over his past 10 starts. And in that time, Woodruff has a 28% strikeout rate. His batted ball data, as always, is very good. And I think that's why we can feel good about Woodruff here being number 2. With the Brewers, though, we do need to account for the possibility of a short start. We saw Woodruff leave his most recent start early. They said it was not due to injury. So I think that, we talked about this a lot with Freddie Peralta being a risk to get yanked early due to trying to save him for October, but it's just as risky with Woodruff as it is for Peralta. I think the one thing that helps here is that I would doubt it happens a second start in a row, and that was his most recent start where it happened. It is something to keep in mind, and it does lower him, but it's not going to push me off entirely. Woodruff has hit 8 strikeouts in half of his 10 starts in this sample, so I like his upside. The reason Castillo is higher for me is that he's lower salaried, he's at home, he's in a better matchup, and he's less likely to get yanked early because the Reds have to get to October, whereas the Yankees, or the Brewers, I should say, they're pretty much there. They can plan for what they want to do there, try to conserve guys and keep them fresh. So to me, it's a hefty advantage for Castillo over Woodruff as a result of those factors. I will be going to Castillo even in single entry, where I know that Castillo will be the chalk for tonight. There is no doubt in my mind that'll happen. I don't care. I still think he is the number 1 guy for single entry, highest exposure pitcher for tournaments. If you're multi-entering too, Woodruff is number 2 when you are multi-entering for today. As far as the top stacks on this main slate, the Yankees are facing a bullpen game for the Twins. John Gant is technically starting. It's been pretty good since he got traded, but it's going to be a good situation to stack the Yankees here. I don't stack against bullpen games all that often because, bullpens, you're getting pitchers in shorter bursts. They can be fresher, stuff like that. And we do see some low totals in those games. But the Twins bullpen is pretty rough. They have a 4.47 ERA based on their current active roster in the bullpen. That is the 7th highest number in the league right now, based on each team's current active roster. If you were looking at the guys likely to be available in long relief for the Twins here, they've struggled quite a bit, which means we'll be getting the Yankees against guys who haven't had great numbers this year, and they might be asked to go longer than they typically do. We're not going to know what the overall pitching breakdown will look like. So I do think that, that's one thing to consider, but there is a lot of room for this to go south. So I think the Yankees do stand out as a priority on this slate for tonight. And I'm going to include Rougned Odor as part of those stacks. One of the issues that we have here with a bullpen game is we don't know handedness of the pitcher. It could be a righty, it could be a lefty. It'll be Gant, who's a righty to start, but they could bring out some lefties after that. Odor, though, does do pretty well against both handednesses. Is that the plural form of that? He has a 175 ISO versus righties, 253 against lefties. So I don't mind if the Twins decide to go with the lefty after Gant. I think that Odor should still be fine. So, I think that he's going to see a roster rate bump as a result of Gant being the starter and his being a righty, but I still think that Odor is a fine option at $2,800. Then you go to the usual guys after that within your Yankees stacks. As far as the second slot goes, there are a good number of contenders. There are 3 teams I do like here. Those are the Brewers, the Reds, and the Dodgers. I'm going to go through all 3 really fast here and why I think they are viable for tonight. The Brewers are most obvious. They're facing John Lester. He hasn't gotten better since joining the Cardinals. He's getting some ground balls, and that's why they're not here standalone as a second stack on the main slate, but they're still a great option. And they're going to be a quality one for me. Dodgers are facing Taijuan Walker. We just saw this matchup last week between the Dodgers and Walker did perform pretty well. But over his past 5 starts, he's letting up a 48% fly ball rate with an 18% strikeout rate. That is despite increasing his splitter usage once again in that sample. Now, the Dodgers have just seen him. I'm not sure that will go all too well for Walker in the repeat matchups. The Dodgers grade out well there. The Reds likely facing Zach Thompson. The Marlins have not officially announced who their starter is for tonight, so it might not be Thompson. Like they have Eliezer Hernandez penciled in for tomorrow, which means I'm not really sure if it'll be Thompson definitively, but it seems like it will be Thompson. Assuming it is Thompson, he did pitch well when he first came up, but it seems like teams are getting more familiar with him, and that has led to some sliding back in terms of what Thompson is doing out there on the mound. He is adjusting. He's gone with more changeups and fewer curveballs his past 4 starts, but the numbers are going the wrong way. I don't think people will be inclined to stack against him because he has some name value. ZRA is pretty good, but I do like it here. So I think for single entry, I might rank the Reds second behind the Yankees. Again, assuming Thompson is officially announced as a starter for the Marlins, I could also see passing up the Yankees entirely and going Reds-Dodgers because not sure how popular either team will be given that Walker and Thompson are probably regarded as being decent pitchers and have good results so far this year. So I like both those pretty decent. Straight up, it's the Yankees, Brewers, Dodgers, and Reds in that order for stacking for today. The Dodgers and Reds, though, for me, get bumped up in tournaments because I think they will be less popular than they likely should. So if you look in single entry, I think both the Dodgers and Reds, pretty good options in that format if you're trying to find a stack that may go overlooked. As far as the dingers for today, we'll do just the dingers for the main slate for tonight. The boring one will be Aaron Judge facing that bullpen game for the Twins. He's obviously very good. This is not a hot take. Good versus righties, good versus lefties. So the boring one is truly boring, and it's Aaron Judge. The more fun one is Willy Adames. I know that Adames is tremendous, and we have seen this Brewers offense take big strides since trading for him, but I don't think we view him as being like a top flight type guy. We probably should. His numbers versus lefties, both from a results perspective and a batted ball perspective, are dumb. So the home run calls for today on the main slate, Aaron Judge and Willy Adames, trying to follow up Hunter Renfroe last night. And I think we had one 2 nights ago as well. So trying to keep the streak going here with the dinger calls on the podcast. That wraps up the main slate for today. So if you're listening to this after 1:10 p.m. Eastern, go on, live your life. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you once again tomorrow. But for this early-only slate, it's a 5-game slate with lock at 1:10 p.m. Eastern for tonight. There is no weather to discuss. It all looks pretty solid, so let's just dive on in and take a look at the pitchers here. Shane McClanahan is the highest salaried pitcher on FanDuel for today. He checks in at $10,100. Dylan Cease is $9,100. Mike Minor's $85. Luis Garcia is $83. And Cole Irvin checks in at $8,200. And to me, this slate's all about tournaments. There is not a single guy on this slate who I really want to, pound the table for in cash games. So it's a very much a tournament-heavy slate on the early-only slate. But I do like 2 guys if we allow ourselves to look at their upside versus their floors. And those 2 guys are Dylan Cease and Luis Garcia. I'm going to start here with Cease because he's my preferred option. He's shaky for sure, and there are 2 reasons why Cease is a bit shaky. The first one is facing the A's. They're a really good offense. So that's strike 1. Strike 2 is that the batted ball data is rough for Cease. He's been leaning more on his slider his past 7 starts, and sliders, you will often see batted ball numbers go the wrong way when a pitcher increases slider usage. We have seen that with Cease because his hard hit rate is 39% with a 52% fly ball rate. That's going to get him in trouble. I can almost guarantee you there will be a solo shot off of Cease at some point today, but there are so many strikeouts. And again, if you let up 1 earned run, you can erase that with 1 strikeout. And he's getting a lot of those. He has a 34% strikeout rate in this 7-start sample. He has a 3.22 skill interactive ERA, despite the really bad batted ball data. We've seen Cease get double-digit strikeouts 3 times in those 7 starts, and 2 of those were in easier matchups, but he also had 10 strikeouts against the Astros. Cease is not super efficient with his pitches. They will give him some leash, though, because he's gone 100-plus pitches in 3 of those 7 starts. We just need him to not mess around. We need him to throw strikes. Will he do that? I don't know. That's why this thing could go poorly, and that's why I can't, say I want to go to Dylan Cease in both cash games and tournaments, but I do like the upside here. I will happily use him, baking on that ceiling. Good tournament play is Dylan Cease, and someone I feel solid about from an upside perspective for today. As far as Luis Garcia goes, he's risking more so due to workload than the matchup. He's facing the Royals. They have an 87 WRC plus versus righties with a 143 ISO, which is second lowest on the early-only slate. That part's fine. Matchup's good. But Garcia's not gone 90 pitches since the end of June. He has gone 85 plus in all but one of those. So it's not like he's like going 70 or anything, but he's close to 90, but he definitely has a cap on his length relative to a lot of other starters. Garcia, though, unlike Cease, is fairly efficient with his pitches, so it hasn't stopped him from putting up good strikeout totals. Garcia's been leaning more on his curveball over his past 10 starts. He has a 30% strikeout rate in that time. He has been able to get to 7 or more strikeouts in 6 of his 10 starts, and he's done it 5 times in his past 6. And that is the sample in which his pitch count has been the lowest. So I don't think Garcia can get you like a 60 burger. That's probably not going to happen given his pitch count numbers, and that's why Cease is higher for me. And it could push you towards Shane McClanahan over Garcia for today. But Garcia almost $2,000 lower salary than McClanahan. I will take that discount. I will say that McClanahan is absolutely ranked 3rd on this list, and he's fully worthy of tournament exposure. But to me, I think that it's Cease 1, Garcia 2, McClanahan 3 in terms of the early-only slate. As far as the stacks go, I am going to be going right back once again to the Rays for the 3rd consecutive slate. They're facing Jorge Lopez, and Lopez is really struggling right now. He is tinkering, trying to turn things around, but not working yet. He has leaned pretty heavily into his sinker over his past 5 starts. In that time, he has a 5.68 skill interactive ERA, which is the highest on the slate by 3/4 of a run. So a big gap between Lopez and the field. He has a 14% strikeout rate with a 13% walk rate. The batted ball data is better than the plate discipline data, but it's not good enough to erase the issues elsewhere. This Rays offense is stupid good, so I think they'll put up a big number once again for tonight. So the Rays, to me, a standout stack once again. As far as batters facing Lopez, you can use either righties or lefties, but you do want to bump up the lefties here in general. So Brandon Lau, Austin Meadows, Ji-Man Choi. It also includes Wander Franco. Franco was initially hitting lefties really well, exclusively lefties really well, but he's been showing more power against righties recently. It's probably similar to what we talked about Jared Kelenic last night, where he's a guy who has had more time in the big leagues now, has been able to acclimate himself, get fully caught up, get used to what the big league pitchers are doing, and we've seen him improve. Talent is good. Good talent is hard to find. We found it here with Wander Franco. So I think the Rays are an elite stack for this slate and very easy to get to if you have Cease or Garcia as your pitcher for tonight. The second spot for me is between the Angels and the Astros. If Shohei Ohtani sits after pitching last night, Astros are the number 2 definitively. If Ohtani plays, then I would put the Angels higher. Given this is a day game right after a night game where he went 8 innings, I think there is a decent chance that Ohtani gets a breather. So I'll talk about the Astros here as the number 2 stack. They're facing Mike Minor. Minor's been lowering his changeup usage over his past 8 starts. And the plate discipline numbers are not that bad, but he's letting up a 42% hard hit rate and a 44% fly ball rate. That has started to lead to some home run issues. Minor has let up 2 home runs in 3 straight starts. He hasn't blown up overall. His ERA is 5.80, but he's not shutting people down either. Now he's faced the Astros, so I think it's a good spot to stack them once again and feel confident in doing so. So the Astros, even if Ohtani does play, you can make a strong case for ranking them second, but I do like the Angels matchup a lot against Matt Manning. So if Ohtani plays, Angels. If Ohtani sits, go Astros number 2. Either way, both these are solid options behind the Rays as the top stack for today. I think it's a good spot to stack the Astros here. And we've got some good value plays once again in Chaz McCormick and Aledmys Diaz. McCormick didn't quite come through when he was my dinger pick a couple nights ago, but had a 400-foot double, so at least came close to that. So going back to the well here once again, $2,300 for Chaz McCormick for tonight. Feeling okay about that one for sure. So Diaz is $2,700. McCormick is $23,000. Both those guys should make it easy to get up to the true studs in this lineup for today. That is all that we have here for today for both the main slate and the early only slate. So go on, fill out those lineups. If you're listening to this early on, did not listen to the main slate, go back to that now and get set for what I think should be a decent slate for tonight. We are also going to be breaking down the main slate later on today during the 4 p.m. stream on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. So swing on by there at 4 p.m. to talk pitchers, stacks, one-offs, your questions about whatever may be on your mind, MLB DFS process as well. 4 p.m. today, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. If you have questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you both on the early only and the main slates, and we'll talk to you once again on Friday to close out the week. This has been the solo shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.